We were meant to hand these out at CrimeCon, but we got far too overwhelmed at all of the incredible people that were there and just completely forgot.
We forgot about our own stickers. Just a quick disclaimer, the content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, crime scenes and other disturbing material. Listener discretion is advised. This episode is sponsored by Think Forensic.
Think Forensic are a one-stop shop for all things forensic science and crime solving. They hold experience days, as well as corporate events, team building events, and general education for primary school right the way up to university level, as well as other events and consultancy. There's also a shop where you can get your hands on all things crime solving, from evidence gathering to packaging and collecting evidence, as well as other forensic science equipment.
For more information or to book on an experience day, please visit the website. Hi everyone and welcome back to episode 4 of the Grave Secrets podcast. We're all muddled up this week, aren't we?
Yeah, it's very confusing.
We're all in the wrong order, but we're your hosts. I'm Annie.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be doing you a sort of CrimeCon debrief, aren't we? Or
Yes.
CrimeCon update. So a little bit about what we were doing last week, because we had such a busy week, didn't we?
Yeah,
in
it was
general.
ridiculous. We had London at the beginning of the week, so
Yeah.
that was Tuesday, Wednesday. And then obviously we had to cram all of the CrimeCon preparations, any last minute sorting out in.
All into one.
And then we went to Glasgow. So we spent...
And we did the podcast on Monday.
Yes.
So we filmed podcast on Monday. Tuesday you stayed... Oh no, Monday night you stayed at mine.
Yeah.
Tuesday we travelled to London. Wednesday we worked in London
Couldn't get rid of
and
me.
came back from London the same day. Then we had Thursday at home, didn't
Yeah.
we? And then Friday we travelled up to Glasgow together. And then we were in Glasgow until Sunday. So we've had one day off from each other this week. And then when I got back on Monday, I was like, oh, where's Beth? I've not seen her for ages. I feel like we're like together all week. So we have had a really, really hectic week, haven't we? So like editing in between as well.
I'd completely forgotten that Linda's interview was the same week, because when we got to the end of Monday, we were like, oh, what a relief, because we've been stressing about trying to get that right. We wanted to make sure that was right. And then so by Monday, we were like, oh, okay, lovely. But then we were like, no, okay, now we've got London.
Yeah, now we've got London, then we've got Glasgow.
Yeah.
London and Glasgow in the same week is actually crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, although it did work out quite nicely, I think.
Yeah.
It was
and
good.
the episode interviewing Linda Sage, that got released Monday, last Monday, so that was our last episode, so that was episode 3, and that's gone down really well. People have found that really interesting.
I do just think it's fascinating to be able to get a bit of an insight into that whole world, isn't it? Like even for us, because we often speak to a lot of forensic scientists, but you don't often get that criminology type psychological side of it as much.
And it's how like she just worked with so many of the serial killers, and she'll say, oh yeah, I've just worked with Myra Hindley, and we're like what? Oh my god, like, so I thought she was really fascinating.
Was. And it was hilarious, because when we were then on the train down to London, we were trying to, you were trying to edit, but we were trying to get the small clips for the Linda podcast.
Oh yeah, we were, weren't we? Yeah.
And there was a table that were next to us, and every time we said something like, yeah, keep the psychopath trait clip, but get rid of the other one, they were like looking at us. And then towards the end, they were like, so what do you do?
Yeah, what are you actually doing? Because we've heard more serial killer names dropped than we've ever heard in our lives. So we ended up telling them about the podcast, didn't we? And talking to them about it. And one of them had got their own podcast too. So we like swap details.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mad who you bump into. But we don't think twice about talking about it. Like I would just say, no, what about the clip about Myra Hindley? Or what about Ian Brady? Or what about Rose West?
Yeah.
Like, should we put this clip in? And people around us were like, what the hell is going on here?
To be fair, though, even with the interview with Linda, I do think that you kind of lose sense of the fact that not everyone is as au fait with talking about death and killing and murder.
Yeah, especially on a train to London, a full train to London.
Yeah. And we were in the quiet coach. Maybe that was what the problem was.
Yeah, I think there was more problems than has been in the quiet coach with what we were talking about. So CrimeCon in general was a really good weekend. Well,
Yeah.
I know it was only on for one day. It was just on for the Saturday, but we had been up there all weekend. So we were there Friday to Sunday.
Yeah.
And we had the setup, didn't we, on the Friday night in the hotel, getting all our stuff set up, because we went with Think Forensic as work, and we also went as content creators with the podcast.
Yeah.
So we were like a bit of everything,
Just
weren't we?
one hat on for 1 minute. And then
and
swap.
then another one straight on. And we got to listen to all the talks, which were also really fascinating.
Yeah, they
as well,
were.
weren't they?
Yeah, so we're going to discuss those as well.
Yeah, so do you want to do a bit about what we were doing there with Think Forensic? Because I feel like you had more of the involvement in planning that.
Yeah, it was my
like
little
that.
baby.
I just turned up and just worked. Yeah. So I just turned up on the day and was like, I'm here, what am I doing?
So effectively, I got in touch with Nancy of CrimeCon on behalf of Think Forensic and basically said, what is this? We want a part of it. And she said, oh my God, yeah, that'd be great. She'd never heard of us. And so she was like, it makes complete sense for us to do something that we've never done before in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, we've got loads of experience doing immersive events effectively, which is what we did. And so why don't we come up with something bespoke for CrimeCon?
Yeah.
So we came up with a whole murder scene, effectively.
I think it's good that it was something totally individual to CrimeCon, because it's someone who's been to see us or someone who had heard of us, someone who had been to our crime scene centre.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know anything about it and they wouldn't know what was coming.
Yeah, they wouldn't have any advantage, would they?
Yeah, so I think that was quite nice that it was bespoke.
So effectively what we had for CrimeCon was a crime scene setup. We then had like a briefing area. And then after that, you went to 2 of 4 workstations that we had. So day-wise, we had 8 sessions running throughout the day that were pretty consistent, weren't they, really?
Yeah, they were. It's just when you get to the end of the 8th session, or even when you get to the end of the 2nd session, I was thinking, have I told them this already?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
have I said this
Did
before?
I already say this to this group or the group before?
Yeah. But it worked amazingly. It went down really well. So effectively what you would do is you would come and meet us at our suspect board. We had 3 suspects, and when attendees of CrimeCon first got there in the morning, they were made aware of a ransom note that had gone out. So they were aware that there was a ransom and there was a singer, made up, she was made up, singer called April Lodge was being held ransom. So they were aware of that, but until they actually had their slot for the experience, they didn't know any other information. And then we went into the briefing room, and it was at that point that we said, there's been a development in the case, and you're going to now investigate the crime scene. Took them through to the crime scene, and unfortunately, April had died.
So the people who was visiting CrimeCon were technically our sort of like fake CSIs for the day, weren't they?
Yeah.
But I think that gives a really good insight into one, like the difference between CSIs and the forensic scientists.
Yeah.
And also how you do go in and investigate a crime scene, because we spoke about this with Linda as well, saying a lot of people who are sort of true crime fans and don't work in the industry think that maybe things are solved a lot quicker than what they are, and it is such a long process. I know on TV they always solve them in 24 hours, don't they, or like technically an hour for the show, but they always get solved really quickly. There's always like a main suspect, and it's not that easy. So I think doing this and having them do the immersive bit and getting involved with it, it shows them the real life problems that CSIs do come across.
Yeah, 100%. Because we did give them kind of a whistle-stop tour as to what an experience with us would be like. But I think that's the only way you can do it, really, in order to show the variety of things that go into solving a crime.
Yeah.
So they could obviously point out pieces of evidence that they wanted to have a look at and look at in more detail. But then the 4 workstations that we had were crucial, really, because that goes to show, we effectively call it like a jigsaw, don't we? They are all, in real life, different teams of people that work together to collate evidence
that wouldn't be in the same lab either. They'd be in separate labs doing everything separate, and then it comes together, and often you don't actually see the case through all the way to the end. So if you've been working on something that you found really interesting, the next time you might hear if someone was convicted or, you know, what's happened in that case could be in the news.
Yeah.
Like it's not always followed from start to finish either, is it?
No.
You know, you do your job, you're part of that jigsaw, and then you move on to a part of the next jigsaw.
Yeah.
And you don't always get to go the whole way through, which sometimes is annoying.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I wonder what happened to this case, and then you have to have a look and you think, oh yeah, they got convicted.
Or you just have to have a really good mate somewhere that
telling you, giving you updates.
Just to check.
Yeah, so our 4 stations that we did, I thought they were really interesting and a really good variety. So I was on the blood work station. So we were looking at different blood patterns and how blood reacts in different circumstances, which is also really interesting, isn't it? And that's something that we do cover at the Crime Scene Centre. We have got a full blood room. And I think blood is probably my favourite, other than what I do.
Yeah.
Other than my actual job.
When we're at the Crime Scene Centre, I like blood and entomology, I think they're my two.
Yeah,
I just
like
love
entomology.
the amount that you can discover from something that would seemingly appear quite
random, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you first go into a crime scene and it's covered in blood, you look around and you could be thinking, what the hell is this?
Yeah, where do
and
you
it
even
just,
start?
It just proved it, because it's what I did with the people at CrimeCon. They went in with Beth and had a look at the crime scene. Then they came to me and they learned a little bit more about blood. And then I took them back into the crime scene and I said, right, now what I've just taught you in literally 10 minutes. Now you're all blood experts. Do you want to go back into the crime scene, have a look and see if you can work out what's happened? And they went in a lot more logically.
Yes.
And they'd go in and go, oh yeah, this is what you've just talked about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is what you've just said. And they could tell so much more. So just having that little bit of blood knowledge, it does help. And I think CSIs as well, when they go in, I think even the CSIs having that small bit of blood knowledge is a massive benefit, isn't it? Because then when you're calling the experts in, they know where to get the blood swabs from.
Yeah.
And I just think you know what areas to avoid, not to touch. So,
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to have that kind of base level knowledge. And I think inherently that's why people in this industry are so good at what they do, because they've got that natural curiosity.
Yeah.
So yes, you can't know everything about everything, and we have specialists for a reason, but it's the fact that they want to learn about everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got your discipline, but equally blood is really interesting.
And it's nice if you can have a group of people as well. I find this happens a lot in the forensic industry, where you'll specialise in one thing, but you've met so many other people in the industry that specialise in all different things. I know that if I came across something, I would know the person to ring up and ask about it.
Yeah.
So I feel like everyone just comes together and sort of helps each other out, don't they, as well?
I think university research is really good for that as well, because I know Amy on our team, she was talking about a few different cases that she has worked on in terms of pathology, but if they were stuck, they've got quite a nice group of universities that they'll go for consultancy and say, like, what's going on with this case, what are we missing, kind of thing. So yes, and speaking of Amy, we then had a pathology workstation. So that looked at X-ray of a skull, and then we looked at different potential murder weapons from the scene and analysed which one, based on the injuries, is most likely to have been the weapon.
Yeah.
And then they also had a look at bones and how bones are affected differently by different weapons.
Yeah, and some of you might be thinking, obviously I did anthropology, so why wasn't I on the bone station
Give Annie the bones.
when that is my expertise? But because it was such a crossover between the pathology and the medical side of it, and just looking at the bones, I feel like Amy had got a lot of experience in the pathology side, and I did actually do those bones, so I did make the marks on the bones, and we made all different marks on bones, and you could match the weapons up and have a look at what weapons you think made which mark on the bone. So I think that was a really interesting one as
lividity, that's another thing, isn't it? Because that could have fallen into blood and it could have fallen into pathology. So there is a lot of crossover with a lot of things. But it's just good to get a broader idea of what's possible. And then hair and fibres, again, you kind of think, oh, Hair and fibres sounds pretty self-explanatory. You look at them under the microscope, you determine what they are. But lo and behold, Dr. Richard Shepherd, who we'll be talking about in a little while, he was wonderful and he kept checking in on us throughout the day, but he actually came to the experience at the beginning in the morning, and he went to the hair and fibres workstation and he actually learnt something about identifying
that's interesting.
ethnicity
within
hair that he never knew.
They didn't know.
And he is an incredibly talented and incredibly clever individual. But yeah, we can all learn something.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. And then we had the fingerprint workstation, which I think is the most common thing that you probably think about when you're thinking forensics and crime scenes.
Clues.
And we talked a little bit about that with Linda as well, how popular fingerprints are in general. So we were fingerprinting different items from the crime scenes and on different surfaces.
Yeah. So Leisha is the one that held that workstation, and again, she's incredible. The amount of letters after Leisha's name is ridiculous.
Yes, it was so interesting. I feel like because when we normally all work together, you come together for the day and then you're packed out and you're so busy doing what you're doing. But I feel because we got a couple of breaks in between our workstations, I got a chance to actually talk to the rest of the team and find out in depth what they do. Yeah. And I must say, Leisha's was so interesting. Everything she was saying, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like,
I just never knew.
Just like, And you've worked with these people for quite a while, but you don't actually know the extent of their
it's like
background.
the ins and outs, isn't it? That you don't really.
The work that she's doing at the moment is absolutely incredible. And I was just sat listening to her. I thought I could listen to her for hours on end.
Get her on
talking
stage.
About it. Leisha definitely should have been on stage.
Yeah. Well, we'll get her on the podcast.
We'll try and get her on as a guest for you, because I think just listening to her, I listened to her for at least an hour and I don't even think I said a word apart from wow, oh wow, like all the way through I was like, oh my God. So yeah, she'll definitely be a good podcast guest. So after we'd done our sort of setup for the day and we'd done our sessions, in between we did actually get breaks so we could go and listen to the guest speakers that were there, which I found absolutely fascinating.
I know, I'm really glad that we got to do that. There were a couple, obviously, that we didn't get a chance to see because we were either resetting or...
we had lunch, didn't we, at a different time to everyone else.
Yeah, but on the whole, it was great because we did get a chance to see whoever and listen to whoever we wanted. And equally, the really great thing that I think CrimeCon offered was the fact that the speakers are just milling around like we are.
Yeah,
so I
like
spoke
that.
to a couple of people without realising who they were.
Did you?
But you just, because you just end up chatting to them and you think, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah.
And then you find out what they do and then they go, oh yeah, I'm on this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm speaking.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay.
And me and Beth actually got the pleasure of going on stage and introducing one of the speakers. And we were only told about this, what was it, 2 days before?
Yeah, a couple of days before.
A couple of days before, and they sent us like a little script and we were thinking, oh my God, we've got to learn this.
And so, I do not work from scripts at all.
I wasn't bad with my bit of the script, but I must say I'd said it a million times in my head. And I was walking around my house making a cup of tea and I was like, and welcome to the stage. Like, just
like
thinking
when you're
it in my
primary
head.
school and you've got like a line in the nativity.
Yeah, I felt like I was in the nativity play. So we got to go up on stage and it actually went well. We didn't fall over. Nothing happened. We didn't stumble. We didn't forget our lines. But luckily they gave us a card with
a prompt card
with the script on it. And luckily they did, because I thought I'd got my lines down to a T. And then I got on stage and stood in front of everyone and thought, oh wow, there's a lot of people here. I don't know what I'm saying. And you know, when your mind just goes blank. And I had to glance down to even say like, hi, we're from the Grave Seekers podcast.
Hope you had a nice lunch.
Welcome back, everyone. So I think it did go well, didn't it?
Yeah.
But that was a bit nerve-wracking. So I don't know how the speakers felt when they were on stage for all that time. But I suppose they're used to it. I feel like a lot of them were very confident.
And I also liked the format because for some of them, they actually did like an in conversation with, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they were actually sat on chairs or sofas or whatever on the stage. And it felt a lot more informal than
Yeah.
it would have if they were doing like a keynote kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a sort of interview, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
there's people there from like the Herald, so the newspaper, and it was such a nice conversation to listen to because it wasn't scripted, was it?
No, it didn't feel
I'm guessing they
scripted at
knew
all.
the questions that were coming, but it wasn't like bang on scripted.
Yeah,
They could
no.
go off script with that. And I found those really informative. So who would you say are your top speakers? Who was your favourite one? Have you got one? Because I feel like I've got a few.
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm undecided between two.
So
you
I
go.
would say Dr. Richard Shepherd,
Yes.
because that combined, he made it light. He made a very serious subject
Yeah.
light.
Yes, it was very easy listening as well.
Yeah.
But he still left in there like the importance of the victims. He still made it about the victims, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%.
But also put his own spin on it. So it was quite personal to him as well, wasn't it? You know, you learned a little bit more about his life outside of what he does.
Yeah.
And he's actually done over 23,000 postmortems or
Unreal.
autopsies, and he made a joke, didn't he? He said he'd done 23,000 but he'd only done the half. So when he said he'd done over 23,000, there was just half of one. And I was like, that's
Okay.
very random. But I did love his speech and the way that it was just personal.
Yeah, I think what was nice is the people that attend CrimeCon are obviously very invested and understand the discipline and have a lot of respect for it. But I think what he did really nicely was bring you into his world without making you feel like he was above you almost.
Yeah,
Do you know
he
what I mean?
came across so down to earth. To say that he's a forensic pathologist, he has been qualified a hell of a long time. He has got a lot of experience. He's been on TV. He's been on loads of TV programs, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And he just came across as such a down to earth, genuine person, and I like that.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, there were little snippets of his personal life. And I think what that does is a bit like we've talked about before, when you have to switch off from the day job because it's an intense way
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah.
What he did there was show how he switches off.
Yeah.
And show how he
Without telling
unwinds,
us, this is
without
what I do.
saying,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
order to switch off.
Yeah. So he was our top for both then.
Ah, okay.
Because we sat together, didn't we, and listened to that.
Yeah.
And it was a mixture between thinking, oh, wow, that's interesting, and laughing.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that was like in there, I wanted to laugh at some of it. Some of it's obviously really serious. Some
And
of it's about
shocking.
the victims.
Yeah.
Some of it's shocking, but I learnt something from it as well.
Yes, yeah, you do. I think that was the main takeaway for me. It was the fact that, as I say, he made you feel like you could learn just as easily as he's learnt.
But then it's not easy because he's been, I think it was in the 70s, in the late 70s that he actually qualified. So the amount of experience he's got is insane.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely love to get him on the podcast at some
would be
point.
incredible.
We'll put Beth in charge of dragging him on. She
Dragging him on.
She don't really give people a chance to say no. It's just like, are you coming on?
Come on, then.
And who would you say was your second favourite? Because I feel like all mine were quite close.
I would say, and I don't think you got a chance to watch it, but it was Enley Hunt, and he is a specialist in school shootings.
Right.
And he is a crime historian and broadcaster. So he's just got a new book out, and it is called I Don't Like Mondays, and it's the true story of the first modern day school shooting.
Wow.
But it's about the Cleveland elementary school shooting in San Diego.
Oh,
And-
yeah, I wish I'd have got a chance to watch that one.
Yeah, and it was just fascinating because, again, it was made quite high profile. Again, you might recognise the I Don't Like Mondays became a song.
Yeah.
So there is quite a lot out there which he talks about that's in the press and in the newspapers, and there's quite a lot of controversy, I'd say, around the case and the shooter, because the shooter herself, she was only 15 at the time.
Oh, wow. That's so young.
Yeah. And so there has been a lot of kind of false press about her and her situation in terms of trying to demonize the family so that effectively so that we say, oh, it's okay, it's all explainable because this is the kind of home she came from.
Right.
When in actual fact, it was all quite normal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I just wish I'd have been in to listen to that one because it did sound really interesting.
So he was amazing because the majority of his talk, which I think is incredible, talked you through individuals that were incredibly they were just amazing in terms of either helping or saving lives.
Wow.
And having a massive impact on people in that day and in that moment, and their actions effectively made the situation a lot, I wouldn't say easier for everyone else, but effectively them standing out as heroes saved a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And he really sang their praises, which I think is what's so important.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's something that we should mention about CrimeCon. Obviously, true crime is fascinating and it's interesting, but the one thing that CrimeCon does really well is place the whole focus on education and the victims.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? To not be always naming the people that we've all heard of and the serial killers.
Yeah.
Like, you could name the serial killers, but you can't really name the victims a lot of the time. And I think it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
So we should know the victims' names and not make the serial killers famous.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's what CrimeCon does. It's not a talk about serial killers and how they got their name. It's not that kind of event. It's education, and it is raising awareness for people who have either been victims or, like I've just mentioned, have been heroes in a really serious situation.
It's a nice spin on it for a change, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think. Yeah.
And I think that's the only reason that so many people in the industry are willing to talk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because they know that there is respect behind it.
Yeah.
So in leading on from that, give me your second favourite and then I'll tell you about a conversation I had.
So it is a close call between, I've got Stephen Keogh or Kerry Danes.
Okay, yeah.
And I can't decide on those two. And I've seen Stephen so much on TV.
I've just seen him all the time.
It feels like I actually know him because we followed him on Instagram with the podcast. He followed us back. I saw that he'd got his documentary out, the detective one, and I started watching that. And I was like reposting things about that. And then when we got there and he was in front of me, I was like, oh my God, like,
Hi.
I feel like I know him, but I don't, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he said, oh, you're the girls from the podcast. He actually knew who we were.
Yeah. So shout out to Stephen. Thank you for that.
Wow, I was like, someone actually knows who we are, like, at CrimeCon.
And we were like, hello.
We were like, hi. And I found him really fascinating. And I don't know if he was my second because I felt like I actually know the person.
Yeah.
And he's been on like loads of TV programs and hopefully there's going to be a next season.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed because he's really, really interesting. And I like, again, how he comes across so human. A lot of the times you hear the detectives talk on TV and they are so matter of fact.
Yeah. And you can understand that to a degree because it is that level of distance in yourself, isn't it? You can't get too emotionally invested because it's your job.
When you've been around it for that long and that many times, you do get desensitized to it. And I know that from my work. Like the first time you go into something, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I've just seen that. But some days I could come home from work and Jay'd say, oh, how was your day at work? and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, but was it fine with what I've just seen at work? So I do feel like you do get quite desensitized, and he's managed to keep such a nice balance between telling you all the facts of the case, keeping a level head, not being too emotionally involved, but also still being so respectful to the victims and the families.
Incredibly so.
And again, he's another one that I thought came across as such a genuine, down-to-earth person.
Yeah. And as I just mentioned earlier, one big thing that me and Stephen were talking about was the fact that CrimeCon respect the victims, and that's the only reason he would attend the event. Because he knows that they want to hear the stories of the victims. They're not interested in who committed the crime. Which I thought was really nice. Because like he said, all of his new series and the book, everything that he does now, and the reason that he talks about the work that he does is to educate people, is to help people understand. He doesn't do it because it's cathartic for him to talk about, because quite the opposite, you know.
It's quite stressful to bring it all back up again, isn't it?
Yeah, you're going through a lot that he's probably really struggled to deal with once, never mind talk about on a regular basis. But it's to educate, and I think that's really important.
One of the cases, he was saying that if he... Still to this day, it happened a while ago, and it was a child case that he was working on, and he said if he closed his eyes he could still picture the child. And I just think, how harrowing is that, to just be able to picture that all the time.
And again, you could bury that, and you could think about it as little as humanly possible, but he chooses to go through that and relive that because it's important and it's educational, and that's what I really valued in his talk.
He does consultancy courses for writers as well. So he helps them get the right perspective, which I think is also important, because not just the educating people on it, but when people write about it, you sort of believe what people have written, don't you?
Yeah,
so you
do.
Need that to be the truth in the first place. But even when you're reading a book that's about a crime that's not real, you still want the way they've investigated it to be accurate and to sort of like honour the victims.
Because as soon as you label it as a documentary, people go, oh, okay, this is fact.
Yes, this is real.
And it's not always the case. And sometimes documentaries are skewed in a certain direction to lead you to one thing or the other. And I think that's another thing that Emily Hunt mentioned in his talk. He said that a lot of the big reporters, I don't know whether it was New York Times or one of the big ones that, again, a lot of people would just trust, had said that there was just one gun. When she got taken out of her house after the shooting, she came out with one gun, when in fact he showed us a photograph from the scene at the time, and there's clearly two. There's clearly one in each hand.
But then you think, if the newspapers reported on it, it must have been...
and again, like he said, and if you check Wikipedia, there's just one. And again, it's that...
Not always accurate.
So you've got to be careful.
And we've got to remember as well, these people that we're talking about who are speaking at CrimeCon have got so much experience, like over 30 years. I know we said about Richard having an extreme amount of experience. Stephen as well, he was detective inspector. He's got 30 years experience with the Met Police. And
because he was a detective inspector.
If
anyone can hear this...
We just both stopped and looked at each other then like,
we're really hoping you can't hear this, but if you can, there's just some construction work going on down the road, so apologies.
Down the road, it's right above our room.
Well, yeah, but...
And every 2 minutes you can hear like a drill, a power drill or something, and we're like, do you think will this be picked up on the podcast? So if you can hear something in the background, that's what it is.
And if you can't, then great, and we've just rambled for no reason.
We've just outed ourselves for no reason. I'm sure you can hear that. That is so loud. Like, I don't know what else could go wrong today. So we got here, the computer, the sound wasn't recording, one of the microphones weren't working, the camera battery's just gone, and we've had to swap it over.
All of these things, for context, I have no idea what goes on. So I just sit here going, oh, could it be this or
have you got the sound turned on? So I feel like I'm a technical person and I'm not technical at all. It's a lot of pressure.
I'm like, just take a minute, it's okay.
Yeah, just sit back. And then we've not
like, we haven't got any time.
We've not got our cups of tea today, which is even worse. We've normally sat here having a chat with a cup of tea. So next, have you got any other standouts?
Again, Kerry, I was gutted because I didn't get a chance to see hers all the way through. I only saw a snippet.
Yeah.
But I spoke to Kerry Days, and she's a forensic psychologist, and she was just absolutely lovely. She was a delight to speak to. And I don't know why, like, when people are quite well known, you do just expect them to be a little bit, not standoffish, but a little bit aloof, maybe.
I don't think anyone that I came across was at all.
No.
Everyone was just so friendly. They were happy to help. They were happy to stand and chat to you.
Yeah.
And it was good that Waterstones actually had a stand. And all the people who were speaking, the ones that had got books out, you could actually go and buy their books. And then I saw queues for people that they were getting the books signed.
Yes.
And I didn't see anyone say like no to anyone, even when there were a massive queue, even when it was lunchtime.
Yeah.
Like all the authors or
Everyone
the
was
people
really
that were there
lovely.
were just talking to people, happy to have photos took with people, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
I'm gutted we didn't get photos.
I know. We should have, like...
I was tempted to ask at one point, and then it was right at the beginning, and I thought, is that like a really like fangirl thing to do, or like take a photo?
Wait till
next one will be
September, and we'll be
forcing
like,
them.
excuse me.
Yeah, but back to Kerry, she was also one of my favourites, so they were my top three. And like you said, I think she just came across so nice, so lovely, so nice to speak to, so personable. And she's from, I think she said Stockport.
Right, yeah.
So she was probably one of the ones that could understand us
Yeah.
from there. Probably one of the local ones. She's just so interesting. And again, I felt like I sort of knew her a little bit because I've seen her on TV so many times.
Yeah.
I'll just be watching something random, like some crime thing on TV. And then she pops up and I'm like, oh, there's Kerry again. And then I'm like, I'll be saying to Jay now for God knows how long, I've met her.
Yeah.
I've met him. I spoke to him at CrimeCon. Jay will be like, for God's sake, I know. Like, you met all these people. I feel like they're all famous.
At one point as well, Kerry was writing a note out for someone because they were interested in getting into the career.
Oh, that's
so there was
nice.
so much like help going on. Do you know what I mean? In terms of if someone did want career advice or if someone had an invested interest somewhere, everyone was just doing their best to share information, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, that is lovely. And there was David Swindle, obviously. He was good.
He was just a gem. I didn't get to see him talk, but we had a good chat about his socks. He had impeccable socks on.
Did he?
Great sock choice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I liked David. And again, I've seen him so many times on TV. So he's worked on absolutely hundreds of high-profile murders, and he did 34 years in the police. Again, I feel like they tell the stories so well.
Yes.
It come across so well, and he seemed just like a really lovely person in general.
Yeah, he did.
I got to like have quick chats with him here and there, and he was always so open to just standing and acknowledging people and having a chat. So yeah, he was one. You know what? We could go for all day with this. I could work my way through everyone and be like, he was a favourite, she was a favourite, and she was really good. Then I did just have one more on the list that I wish I'd have got to listen to his speech. I don't know if you saw it. So it was Joseph Kotrimonson.
So, yes, I did see it. And what I found was really interesting is we were actually speaking to him beforehand, weren't we?
Yeah.
And he was in his jeans and he was looking chill and he's got his hair down. And we were just like, that's one where I was like, just here for the day. Yeah. And I had no idea that he was shortly getting up on stage. But yeah, his was great. He effectively... was sharing with people his experience being a criminal defence lawyer, but then equally telling people that it is inherent within us from being cavemen that you need someone else to sort out arguments. So we have a jury of people.
Yeah.
Back in the old days when it was cavemen, you would have had two people saying, that's my stick. no, that's my stick. And then you would go to an other.
Like a mediator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would say, excuse me.
Whose stick is this?
Whose stick is this? Yeah. And he effectively said that is how the court system has evolved over the years.
Yeah.
Because then it gets to the point where you need, if you are less educated, you need someone to fight your corner. Therefore, that's how lawyers and solicitors were born.
Yeah.
And he had a really interesting perspective on it, really, because it broke everything down and shared that, everyone, because people say to him, how can you defend someone that you know think is guilty? Yeah, that you know is guilty or that you think is guilty. Yeah. But like he said, everyone deserves the right to have their side of the story heard.
Yeah.
And that's effectively what he goes
So even
does.
if they are guilty, they still need to put across their side, because like you said, there's two sides to every story.
Yes.
And you've probably got the truth, the two stories, and it's usually somewhere in the
somewhere
middle.
in between. Yeah. So that was really interesting as well, and I like the fact that he stripped it right back.
Yeah.
And took you on the journey with him.
And he is another northern neighbour of ours, because he came up and I was looking on the timetable saying, who's on next, who I wanted to see. And I didn't realise that he was stood next to me. And I turned and looked and I was like, oh, yeah. And he was looking for his thing. And I said, oh, I think you're on it at this time. And then I realised who it was. And he started talking and he said, oh, I'm from near you. I can understand you. We had like a bit of a laugh about it. So yeah, I do. That's one of them that I do wish I would have got to speak to. But another really interesting person who wasn't actually doing a speech, but this who I said that you should speak to, and he was called, is it Hugh Morrison?
Yeah.
And he is a facial reconstruction expert, and I went to him to talk to him because he had pictures on his, what's it called? On his stand. On his stand, and it showed you like the skull, and then it showed you how he had reconstructed it, and then he flipped them over and it told you the story of that person.
Oh wow.
So he'd done some historical stuff, he had done some missing person cases, and he'd also worked on so if you've got a cold case and they had a suspect back in the day and someone had done like a CompuFit of the suspect, but then you're 20 years down the line, he would then age that person and put it out again and saying this is what the suspect would look like now.
Yeah.
Same with victims or missing person. If someone's gone missing a while ago, this is what they would look like now they are aged.
Yes.
And he was just so fascinating. And I said, so have you got a science background? And he said, well, I do now because I've got my master's, but he started off as a painter. And then straight away I was like, Beth. And I was talking to him. You was probably watching one of the ones that I was waiting to go to. And straight away I thought of you.
Yeah.
And he said that he lives abroad and he gets all the stuff emailed over to him and he sits on his tablet drawing like you do on the train.
Yeah.
And I watch you and I'm fascinated by it. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're drawing, but
not doing anything quite as important.
Can I just watch? And he was showing us some of the work that he had done, and that was really good. That was something that was really interesting. So that is probably another person who I would like to maybe communicate further with and get in touch with and discuss more, maybe not opportunities, more cases and stuff with them. Just in general, I'd like to know even more.
And you would think that if, for instance, if it's a missing person or a cold case that he's worked on, do you think they let him know afterwards? Do you think he gets the full puzzle?
I don't think he would do, know. It'd be nice to think that he does and that you find out. Because if this was me, I would be messaging going, oh, what happened to this person?
Just
what happened to that
wondering,
person?
any updates?
Yeah. Oh, did they get convicted?
Yeah.
How did court go?
Yeah.
They'd be like, shut up and do your job. So I feel like with something like that, because when you are drawing someone and you're reconstructing them, when you've got someone's skull, obviously no one's going to recognise that person. But then when the facial reconstruction artists work on it and they build it up and you see the person.
It's so clever.
So whereas me working with bones and anthropology, I don't always see the person because I'm looking at bones. But then when you look at a picture of someone from those bones, you're like, oh, you can put a face to the person.
Yeah.
And I think it's more personable as well.
Yeah, and I do think for most people, they're a lot better with faces than they are names. So if I heard a news bulletin that said there was a missing person and named them, I'd probably have no clue.
Yeah.
But if you show me a picture, I would say, yeah.
See, I am absolutely shocking at recognising people.
Oh.
And it's really strange because obviously in my line of work, I have to have attention to detail and all those things. But we can be sat watching something and Jay will say to me, oh, this is the actor that you've just watched in this other film. And I will not have a clue.
No idea.
At all. And he's like, do you just not recognise people? And there's something with me and faces where I just don't recognise them.
Yeah.
So I don't remember names.
It's always it's always in context as well, isn't it? If you see someone that you recognise but they're in a place that's unfamiliar, then you're like...
That might be what it is, because when we watch them in one thing, if they're playing a character that's drastically different, I don't put them into that character.
Yeah.
But it's weird for me to be in my line of work.
No, they're still in the desert.
But not be very good with faces, but still be able to pay attention to detail in other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a
enigma.
Strange
You're an
one.
enigma.
Yeah. And then just to talk about the podcasters we met, we didn't get a chance to go around absolutely everyone, did we?
No, because again, there was like a separate area where all the podcasters and, like you say, Waterstones and the book publishers and stuff were there. But again, because we were there with Think Forensic, we had the sessions in this kind of main hall area. So, I mean, I didn't go in that other room at all. I didn't get a chance, no.
So I went in, I was doing the tea runs because we had tea and coffee on tap all day. And it got to halfway through the day and I thought, I've not drank one glass of water and I've had about 10 cups of tea and I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. So I kept going through to grab the cup of teas for everyone. And as I went through, I'd have a look round, scan it and see who was there, see who we sort of... not new, but who we'd maybe seen on Instagram.
Yeah.
And before CrimeCon, we actually followed some of the creators, didn't we? And connected with them and started having a chat to them, following their podcasts and listening to them. So the ones that I probably spoke to the most is the Crime Pod. And they are based in Edinburgh. So that's Sam and Caitlin. And they were so lovely. And just in general, to talk to people who are doing the podcasting side of it and not the forensic side of it. It's nice
because they came on the CSI
perspective.
experience as well, and they loved it. They thought it was super interesting, which was nice.
So I can't remember if it might have been Caitlin that came to 2. So she came to the blood one to start with, and then she came back a little bit later on, and it was so hard not to say what had happened. You know what I mean? Because she knew already, and she's like, just look at it, just look. So yeah, I think it was nice to hear things as well from a podcaster's point of view. And I did have a chat to them about, like how we're filming, how we're doing the actual podcast, how we do the editing and things like that. And they were saying they've got their merch that's just come out that they were wearing.
Amazing,
So they've got a merch line and they've been going for a good few years now.
I didn't realise that was new merch because that looks like super well established. Like brand, they've got a really clean logo.
Yeah, I like their
Arty.
logo. Yeah, I know the little artist over here. You should like our logo better. You did it. No, they have, but they were 2 that really stood out for me on the podcaster side.
Yeah, for me, as I say, I didn't go into that zone, but I just coincidentally got speaking to Hannah and Kate from Don't Blame the Mom. And they were so lovely, so excited to be there. I think they took advantage of everything during the day. They got really stuck in. Again, they came to the CSI experience and they were super invested and they were just lovely to chat to.
Yeah.
And you could tell that they are real, again, like advocates for the community.
Yeah.
So it was nice getting to chat to them.
Yeah, so on to the next CrimeCon.
Yes.
So we went to, this was our first CrimeCon, which was in Glasgow, but the next CrimeCon for this year is actually in London.
In September, which is going to come so quickly.
21st and 22nd of September.
Yeah.
And I think, have we been confirmed? Are we going to be there again? Or
Let's hope so.
let's have our fingers crossed that we get to go to London one, because I think it is a little bit bigger as well.
Yeah, it is. It's a hell of a lot bigger, and there's different tiers of tickets, so you can have a different experience based on whatever you choose to attend.
Yeah. And there's student tickets available as well. So if anyone's thinking of coming and thinking, the prices might be a little bit high and you're a student, have a look at those.
And there is certain like grant funding or allowances for students as well. Because I know we've been to a college recently and they said that you could effectively negate quite a lot of the cost because it ties into obviously their
It worked
subject.
out, I think, over £200, didn't it, each that you could have got through the funding. So if there is students listening that do want to go, please check with your colleges or universities and stuff like that, because you might be able to get some more discounts.
Yeah.
And one thing that I was really, really excited about is that in the London CrimeCon, we've got Patricia Wiltshire.
Yes.
We actually talk about Patricia quite a lot.
We do.
We love Patricia. She doesn't even know who we are. She doesn't even know we exist. But she's a forensic ecologist and she's got a new book out at the moment that I've just started reading. And the book is called The Natural History of Crime. And it is so interesting.
Again, I really like the illustrations on there.
Yeah, it is. It does look nice. Even when I'm listening, because I listen to it in the audiobook version.
Nice.
So I can listen when I'm travelling to Sheffield in the car. I've got like an hour journey. And it is quite a long book. I think it came up at 12 hours.
Oh, right.
And she starts off by going into...
Is it her that's narrated it?
No, but she starts talking about how she got into it. She goes right back to the start, which is what we like to know, isn't it? The first question we like to ask people is, how did you end up here? How did you get into this?
Yeah.
And she started off as a forensic ecologist and she does a lot of forensic botany. And she actually met her husband, who is a mycologist.
Oh, wow.
But she says in the book quite openly, I've taught him everything he knows about the forensic techniques. So obviously he didn't do it to do with forensics, and then she sort of brought him into the forensic field.
Oh, amazing.
And she talks about so many of the cases that she's worked on where you'd think, I'm not going to spoil the book for anyone if anyone wants to read it, you'd think, oh wow, what the hell has happened here?
Yes.
It's really like freak cases that you think, this is strange.
Yeah, really obscure.
Yeah. And then she'll like take a sample, she'll look at the plant spores, she'll like come up with a reasonable explanation. And when she says it, you think, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah,
but
it's having that knowledge in the first
you wouldn't
place.
put it in your head. And she also talks about working with all of the police forces in England. And I think it might be in England and Wales that she said. And she openly talks about how at first people didn't think it was as reliable as what it is. Yeah. Which is what we had as well with Linda the other day.
I was just about to say, that's crazy, isn't it? There's so many elements that people just kind of belittle or brush over, until it helps something, and then they go, okay.
And she actually said that at first the police would sort of use her as some, sort of prop to be took in and out of the cupboard whenever they wanted, and they'd ring her up and, can you do this? And they wanted her there at like their beck and call, basically. So it is really interesting. I'm only probably 2 or 3 hours into the book.
Yeah.
But I'm loving these case studies. They are so good. All of them, I'm like shouting at the radio, like what could it be? Oh my God, how someone managed to do that? Yeah. And then you hear about it and it's like, oh, that's good. So I'm actually loving that book at the moment. It's not something I normally read.
No, but I think the reason that we're so invested in Pat Wiltshire, or Patricia, is the fact.
Oh, you're on friend terms.
It's because we mention her loads in our experience days at Think Forensic. So she's a bit of a celebrity in that whole ecology, forensic science field. And there are some cases that we talk about in which we mention her because she was kind of pivotal. We're big fans.
She did some things on entomology as well. So she's quite up on entomology. Cool. And she actually went to the body farm in Tennessee. And she said she went there in exchange to lecturing some of their students. Yes, and she was talking about that in a book and how she's done a lot of work at the King's College in London.
Yes, yeah.
So she is a really, really interesting person, and she's another one that I could just listen to everything that she's done for hours on end. Well, I am doing, listening to the book. So I am really excited, and this is why I hope that we're there in September, because Patricia is going to be there, and I'm guessing she'll be a guest speaker, and she'll have her book there as well. Yeah. So we'll get to watch. You'll be getting an autograph. Oh, I'll be straight in there. I'm going to ask her for a photo. And then you can ask her to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine if we got,
Oh,
wow.
we'd be so excited.
That would be amazing. I'd be so nervous.
Yeah.
Like, she is actually a celebrity.
You'd probably make us come in and do like a mock one.
Oh, yeah.
Before she comes in. Just
We'll
so you
have
can
a practice.
check.
We'll have a practice, Patricia. And what did we get? We got some gifts, didn't we, from CrimeCon?
Yes. So let's do an unboxing. What do you call it?
Yeah. Look at you, influencer Beth. So this is what we got from CrimeCon. So if you're watching on the video, you'll be able to see this, but if not, we'll talk you through it as well. So we've got our tote bag.
So it's a true crime partnered with CrimeCon tote. Nice high qual, actually, Annie.
You were eyeing those up from the beginning as well. As soon as we got in, I knew Beth was going to be looking at the tote bags. And then when they came over and they let us have one, you weren't even there. I was like, let me take one for Beth. I was like, she's going to love this.
Beth's going to need one of those. So first up, drum roll, please. Oh, we have a Crime Monthly. Ta-da.
I didn't even know there was a Crime Monthly magazine.
I know, we're bad experts.
We are.
We didn't know this. But yes, it looks like the Hello magazine, doesn't it, really?
It does. And just look here at the bottom, 10,000 human bones found at mansion. I was very intrigued by that one. And you know what? I put the bag to one side and I forgot to read that actual article.
Well, in fact, we stayed in an Airbnb, and when I went down one of the mornings, Amy was sat just reading this.
As if we don't read and listen to and watch true crime enough already, but there is some really interesting ones. Oh, that's him from Blue Light. Is it not Blue Light? AC12.
Yes.
What's it called?
I don't know. But
I can't remember the name of
AC12.
it. Yeah.
Anyway, so there's recommendations for things crime related that you should watch, and there's lots of articles about cases. So that's a good haul so far, honey.
A good read, as well as Pat's book.
And then we've got Ronnie Biggs, The Great Train Robber, an autobiography. So that's the inside story of Britain's most notorious heist. So
do you prefer to read or do you prefer to listen?
Read.
Right, okay, so I'm the ones that prefer to listen, but this did look really good. So
I just like holding a book. I've got a thing about holding a book. In fact, I was talking to my author friend yesterday, and she beta reads, so effectively like proofreads and gives feedback. And I said that'd be super interesting, but I'd want to hold it in my hands. But obviously that's not doable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like.
See, I'm a Audible girl, so I like to get download the book, and then when I'm on a long drive, I like to put that on and like be consuming something while I'm driving.
Yeah, I'm like that with podcasts.
Doesn't take any more time out of my schedule.
I draw a line at audiobooks
because I feel like I don't actually enjoy reading.
Okay.
I don't sit there and think I enjoy it. I'll read something and think, what have I just read? And I'll have to go back and read it again. So I'm not one of those people.
Well, you won't be needing one of these.
Oh, well, we've got a bookmark.
Bookmark, yeah.
Well, you know what? You can have my crime bookmark.
Oh, thank you. This is interesting, actually. This is for if you want to do a crime criminology and criminal justice course.
Oh, right. Where's that at? Is that
it's online.
An online course?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got our bookmark.
Oh.
What else is in the bag?
A rustling of Tony's chocolonely little bits.
Can you have them? Have they got nuts in them?
Questionable. I'll have to have a look at a later date. And
Beth hates me telling everyone this, but she's got a nut allergy.
Yeah, I've got so many allergies. It's just because when we go to nice places to eat,
I don't want you to die.
They don't let me eat.
Because I don't want you to die. Do they say, have you got any allergies? And I look at Beth and I know for a fact she's not going to say it. And I'm like, she's got a nut allergy. She's like, shut up, let me eat.
And then, so that's our haul. Very exciting. But then, may I say, quite possibly more exciting than that.
Oh, I was thinking, what else is exciting? Oh, yes, I forgot about these.
Grave Secrets stickers. So, if anyone should desire a Grave Secrets sticker, we were meant to hand these out at CrimeCon, but we got far too overwhelmed at all of the incredible people that were there and just completely forgot.
We forgot about our own stickers and just went to talk to everyone else. And I even got stickers from other people, right? I got stickers, I got pin badges, I got QR codes.
Soap.
I got soap. and didn't even notice that we'd not put our stickers out. So now we have, 100 stickers or something?
Yeah, 100 stickers.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that, like, what do you call it, when you sticker things in town centres? Sticker graffiti, so that people know who we are. And just stick them about and people go, what's that?
What's that? And then Google it. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we come up first if you Google it, or if we're going to be giving someone else the promotion.
I don't think we're that one.
I don't think we're that established yet. But I was thinking this the other day, by CrimeCon for London, we will have loads of episodes out. We'll have been going for a decent amount of time, won't we? Like over 6 months or 6 months-ish.
Yeah.
We'll have had loads of guests on, hopefully.
Yes.
And I feel like when we go there next, we will actually be established podcasters.
We might even have a little banner stand.
How exciting.
So I think we've done a good lowdown there. We should just finish on saying a massive thank you to Nancy, David, and all of the CrimeCon crew, because the staff were fabulous.
Yeah,
and
David was so helpful, weren't he? He looked after us all day, bless him.
He definitely
Every
did.
question, I kept running up to him and saying something, and he's like, very organised.
Yeah. And he even took a photo of us when we were on stage, so we will be posting that.
Follow us on socials to see all our behind the scenes. And I was meant to vlog the whole thing, and that didn't happen either. So I took some little videos and some photos that I'll put together in reels and stuff. But to do I took my camera, I'd got my batteries ready.
Got all the gear.
I'd got my light, all the gear and no idea. That is literally me. Turned up and I was just so fascinated by other people that I just didn't even get my camera out of my bag. And then at the very end of the day, I thought, I've not even turned
And
my
I had
camera
given
on.
you a lot of work to do, to be fair. So you didn't get a lot of chance anyway.
I was just floating about. I was chatting to people. I was drinking a million cups of tea. I was loving life. Yeah. So I think that is all for our CrimeCon episode. Anything else from you?
Yes. No. Just was super lovely to meet everyone, and I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Good experience, and we'll see you in September.
Yeah.
So follow us on our socials. We've got some new clips from episodes out at the moment, and we will see you next week.
And if you rate our podcast, we'll give you a sticker.
Okay. Bye. Bye.